Savannah Mitchell, 29, stood frozen in her wedding dress as her phone buzzed with the news that would shatter her perfect day. Her parents weren't coming. Her sister Amber's emergency headache had once again taken center stage. As tears threatened to ruin her makeup, her fiancé Ethan squeezed her hand and whispered, "Trust me, I'll make this right." She had no idea his solution would tear her family apart forever. Before I dive into the most heartbreaking yet ultimately satisfying day of my life, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your location in the comments below, and if you enjoy family drama with sweet karma, hit that subscribe button and notification bell. Trust me, what my fiancé did when my sister ruined our wedding will leave you absolutely speechless. Growing up in the Mitchell household meant understanding one unwritten rule: Amber came first. Always. As the eldest daughter of Richard and Diane, Mitchell I, Savannah had spent my entire life in the shadow of my younger sister's fragile constitution. From the outside, we appeared to be the picture-perfect American family. Dad, a successful accountant, Mom, a dedicated homemaker, and 2 daughters, just 3 years apart. We lived in a spacious colonial house in suburban Connecticut, complete with a white picket fence and perfectly manicured lawn. The kind of home that made neighbors envious and visitors comfortable. But behind closed doors, our family dynamic revolved entirely around Amber's endless health concerns. Since childhood, she complained of mysterious ailments that baffled doctors yet commanded our parents' undivided attention. Headaches so debilitating she couldn't attend school. Stomach pains that mysteriously appeared before my piano recitals. Fatigue that struck precisely when family activities didn't center on her preferences. "Savannah, you need to be more understanding," Mom would say, stroking Amber's hair as she lay dramatically on the couch while I packed away my science project they'd promised to help with. "Your sister can't help being sick." The pattern continued through our teenage years. My 16th birthday celebration canceled when Amber developed sudden nausea. My high school graduation party cut short when Amber couldn't bear the noise. My college scholarship celebration dinner abandoned when Amber had one of her episodes. I became adept at swallowing disappointment, at making myself smaller to accommodate her expanding needs. My achievements were footnotes, her complaints were headlines. When I brought home straight A's, Mom would nod distractedly while adjusting Amber's cooling cloth. When I won a prestigious internship, Dad would say, "That's nice, sweetheart," before rushing to the pharmacy for Amber's latest prescription. "You're the strong one," they'd tell me, as if my emotional resilience was a consolation prize. "You don't need the attention like Amber does." Over time, I built my life away from family. I excelled academically, forged strong friendships, and eventually moved to Boston for a position at a marketing firm. Distance provided perspective, and therapy helped me understand the toxicity of our family dynamic. Still, I longed for parental approval for just one moment where I was the priority. When I met Ethan Carter at a charity fundraiser 4 years ago, I was struck not just by his charm and intelligence, but by how he listened, truly listened when I spoke. As our relationship deepened, he became increasingly disturbed by my family stories. "That's not normal, Savannah," he'd say, holding my hand across our favorite restaurant table. "You deserve better than being an afterthought to your parents." Ethan came from a close-knit family where celebrations were sacred and support was unconditional. His parents, Margaret and Robert, welcomed me warmly, including me in Sunday dinners and holiday traditions. For the first time, I experienced what family could be, not perfect but present. When Ethan proposed on a sunset cruise around Boston Harbor, I felt a surge of hope that perhaps my wedding would finally be the event my parents couldn't sideline. I called them immediately after saying yes, heart pounding with excitement. "That's wonderful news, honey," Mom said, her voice oddly flat. "Oh, Amber's calling from the other line. Her migraine is back. Can we talk details later?" Despite this inauspicious beginning, I plunged into wedding planning with determined optimism. Ethan and I chose a beautiful venue by the coast set for June 15th. I selected a stunning dress, arranged flowers, hired photographers, and sent invitations. Each step felt like an affirmation: this day would be different. This day would be mine. My parents had promised, absolutely promised, they would be there. Dad would walk me down the aisle. Mom would help me get ready. For once, Amber's issues wouldn't take precedence. "Nothing will keep us from your big day," Dad assured me, during a rare phone call where Amber's needs weren't mentioned. I wanted to believe him. I needed to believe him. Despite years of evidence to the contrary, I convinced myself that a wedding was too significant for even Amber to overshadow. In retrospect, my optimism was as predictable as their betrayal. But even I couldn't have imagined how that betrayal would set in motion a chain of events that would permanently realign the power dynamics of the Mitchell family forever. The 6 months leading up to our wedding day had been a whirlwind of emotions and preparations. Ethan and I had chosen the picturesque Ocean Cliff Resort in Newport, Rhode Island, a stunning venue overlooking the Atlantic that perfectly symbolized the expansive future we envisioned together. We'd selected a maritime blue and silver color scheme, booked an exceptional caterer known for New England seafood specialties, and even splurged on a string quartet for the ceremony. Every weekend was consumed with tastings, fittings, and vendor meetings. Throughout it all, Ethan remained my rock, handling logistics when I felt overwhelmed and reminding me of the happiness awaiting us whenever anxiety crept in. His parents were equally supportive, with Margaret joining us for dress shopping and Robert insisting on contributing to our honeymoon fund. My own parents' involvement, however, remained peripheral at best. Mom would answer wedding-related calls with distracted hams, while I could hear her preparing Amber's tea in the background. Dad would promise to look at venue photos later, only to forget entirely. When I'd scheduled a tasting session specifically on a weekend they'd promised to visit Boston, they canceled the morning of. Amber had developed severe vertigo. "I'm sorry, sweetie," Mom had said, her voice carrying the familiar tone of dismissal I'd grown to expect. "Your sister just can't be left alone right now. You understand, don't you?" I did understand, all too well, but Ethan was becoming increasingly frustrated with their behavior. "They're not even trying," he'd fumed after they missed our engagement party because Amber had claimed sudden light sensitivity. "It's like they don't care about this massive moment in your life." "They care," I defended weakly, though doubt had long since taken root. "They're just preoccupied." As the wedding date approached, I made one final attempt at securing their full participation. 3 weeks before the ceremony, I flew to Connecticut for a weekend, determined to personally walk them through the schedule and emphasize their importance to the day. The visit started promisingly. Mom had prepared my favorite lasagna, and Dad had taken the evening off work. Amber was subdued, though her eyes narrowed when conversation centered on wedding details. We sat around the dining table. I'd grown up with the familiar setting, both comforting and anxiety-inducing. "So it's really important that you arrive by 2 p.m. on Friday for the rehearsal," I explained, sliding them a printed itinerary I'd created. "The dinner afterward is at Rosecliff Mansion, and then on Saturday the ceremony starts at 4, but we need to be at the venue by noon for photos." Dad nodded, studying the schedule. "Looks well organized, pumpkin." "We've booked your hotel room with an ocean view," I continued, hope blooming as they seemed genuinely engaged. "And Mom, I've arranged for us to get our hair and makeup done together before the ceremony." Mom touched my hand. "That sounds lovely, dear." Amber, who had been pushing food around her plate, suddenly spoke. "I don't know if I can handle all that activity. You know how easily I get overwhelmed." The familiar weight of dread settled in my stomach as I watched Mom's attention immediately shift. "Oh, sweetie, we'll make sure you have plenty of rest between events," she soothed, turning to me with that expression I knew too well, apologetic but unmovable. "Savannah, we might need to adjust some of these timings for Amber's health." I took a deep breath. "Mom, this is my wedding day. The schedule is already set with the venue and dozens of guests. Amber can rest in the hotel if she needs to, but I'm really counting on you and Dad to be fully present. An uncomfortable silence fell over the table. Dad cleared his throat. Of course we'll be there, Savannah. Don't worry. But the damage was done. The rest of the weekend passed with a palpable tension. When I left on Sunday, Mom hugged me tightly and whispered, "It'll be beautiful no matter what, honey." Those words should have comforted me. Instead, they felt ominously like preemptive consolation. Back in Boston, Ethan noticed my subdued mood immediately. We were in our apartment halfway through addressing thank you cards for shower gifts when he set down his pen and took my hands. "They're going to pull something, aren't they?" he asked quietly. I couldn't lie to him. "I hope not." But yes, probably. His jaw tightened, but his voice remained gentle. "Listen to me, Savannah. If they don't show up, if they choose Amber over you again, that's it. I won't stand by and watch them hurt you anymore." "What does that mean?" I asked, both frightened and curious. "It means I have a plan B," he said, a determined glint in his eyes. "And if we need it, we're going nuclear. No more enabling their behavior." I should have pressed for details, but part of me didn't want to know. Another part desperately hoped we wouldn't need whatever contingency he'd prepared. The final week before the wedding arrived, bringing with it a flurry of last-minute details and arriving guests. Ethan's family came early, helping with welcome bags and decorations. My college roommate Julia flew in from Seattle, and my Boston friends rallied around me. 3 days before the wedding, everything seemed on track. My parents texted confirmations of their flights and hotel check-in. Even Amber sent a brief message, "Looking forward to your big day." For once, I allowed myself to believe that maybe, just maybe, this milestone would be different. This time, I would be the priority. I had no idea that in less than 48 hours, I would be standing in my wedding dress, phone in hand, reading the text that would confirm my worst fears and set in motion Ethan's mysterious plan that would change everything. The morning of my wedding day dawned with perfect New England summer weather, clear blue skies, a gentle breeze, and temperatures hovering in the mid-70s. Standing on the balcony of my oceanfront suite at Ocean Cliff Resort watching early sailboats dot the horizon, I felt a surge of cautious optimism. Today was finally here. My day. Julia bustled around the suite organizing mimosas and breakfast for the bridesmaids while my makeup artist set up her station by the window. Ethan had spent the night in a separate suite with his groomsmen, adhering to tradition even though we'd lived together for 3 years. His morning text, "Can't wait to make you Mrs. Carter today. I love you beyond words," had brought happy tears to my eyes. The only shadow on my perfect morning was the silence from my family. Mom had promised to call when they left the hotel for the venue. It was now 11 a.m. and still nothing. "They're probably just running late," Julia reassured me, handing me a champagne flute. Parents are always frazzled on wedding days. I nodded, trying to focus on the happiness surrounding me rather than the knot of anxiety growing in my stomach. By noon, as my hair was being styled in loose waves adorned with baby's breath, I could no longer resist checking in. "I'm just going to call my mom," I told the room, stepping into the bedroom for privacy. The call went straight to voicemail. Same with my father's phone. A cold dread began to spread through me as I texted both of them at venue getting ready. "Where are you guys?" The next 30 minutes passed in a blur of mounting tension. My makeup was being applied while I constantly checked my phone, smiling artificially whenever the artist asked me to change expressions. When my phone finally buzzed at 1245, I nearly knocked over the makeup chair in my haste to grab it. The message, however, wasn't from either parent. It was from Amber. "Sorry sis, had a splitting migraine all night. Mom and Dad taking me to urgent care. Won't make it to ceremony. Maybe reception later. Don't stress your day and all that." I stared at the screen, disbelief morphing rapidly into a hollow certainty. Of course! Of course this would happen! The carefully constructed fantasy that my wedding would somehow be exempt from the family pattern came crashing down around me. Julia found me sitting on the edge of the bed, still clutching my phone, tears threatening to spill and ruin the makeup I just had applied. "They're not coming," I whispered, showing her the text. "Amber has a headache." Julia's expression shifted from concern to outrage. "A headache? They're missing your wedding for a goddamn headache," I laughed bitterly. "Not just any headache, an Amber headache. The kind that has controlled our family calendar my entire life." The makeup artist and hairstylist exchanged uncomfortable glances, pretending not to hear as Julia sat beside me. "What do you want to do?" she asked gently. "We can delay the ceremony if you need time." I considered this briefly before a strange calm settled over me. "No, Ethan needs to see this, now. But it's bad luck for him to see you before." "Screw tradition," I interrupted, standing up. "This is more important." Despite protests from the bridal party, I insisted on going to Ethan's suite immediately. Julia helped me gather my still unzipped dress around me and threw a robe over my shoulders. We made our way through back corridors to avoid other guests, eventually reaching his door. When Ethan opened it, confusion quickly gave way to concern at the sight of my tear-streaked face. "Savannah, what's wrong? Why are you here?" I handed him my phone wordlessly. His expression darkened as he read Amber's text, jaw clenching visibly. Without a word, he pulled me into the suite and dismissed his groomsmen with a quick explanation. Once we were alone, he enfolded me in a tight embrace, letting me sob against his chest. When the tears finally subsided, he guided me to the couch and knelt before me, taking my hands in his. "I promised you I had a plan B," he said, voice steady but eyes flashing with righteous anger. "It's time. If you agree." "What exactly is this plan?" I asked, wiping away tears. Ethan pulled out his own phone. "I hired a private investigator 3 months ago. After your parents missed our engagement party, I knew we needed insurance." "A private investigator to do what?" "To follow Amber," he said simply. "To document her behavior when she thinks no one is watching." He opened a folder of photos and videos, scrolling through them slowly. Images of Amber shopping during alleged bedbound days. Videos of her dancing at clubs when she was supposedly suffering debilitating pain. Screenshots of social media posts about parties hastily deleted afterward. "She's been faking, Savannah. Or at least grossly exaggerating." For years, Ethan explained, his voice gentle despite the damning evidence. The PI documented dozens of instances where her episodes coincided perfectly with your important events, only for her to miraculously recover when the attention shifted away from you. I felt lightheaded as pieces of my childhood and adult life snapped into a new, disturbing alignment. And today, Ethan grimaced. "The PI is currently documenting them. Your parents and Amber are at a restaurant having brunch right now. Not urgent care." The betrayal hit me like a physical blow. Not only was Amber lying, but my parents were active participants in the deception. "Here's what I propose," Ethan continued, squeezing my hands reassuringly. "We go through with our wedding surrounded by people who genuinely care about us. Then, during the reception, we make sure your family's table sits empty for everyone to see. And after our honeymoon, we send them and every extended family member the complete investigation file." I hesitated, conflicting emotions warring within me. "Isn't that extreme?" "They missed your wedding for a fake emergency, Savannah," Ethan said firmly. "After a lifetime of putting you last. If we don't take a stand now, nothing will ever change." In that moment, looking into the eyes of the man who had gone to such lengths to protect me, who saw my worth when my own parents couldn't, I made my decision. "Do it," I whispered, a strange, liberating power flowing through me. It's time they faced consequences. Ethan's smile was equal parts loving and vindictive. I was hoping you'd say that. Now let's get you back to finish getting ready. We have a beautiful wedding to enjoy without the people who don't deserve to share it. As Julia helped me back to the bridal suite, I felt something unexpected beneath the hurt freedom. For the first time in my life, I was choosing myself over the destructive family dynamic that had defined me for too long. The betrayal was complete. But so was my resolve to finally break free. 4 o'clock arrived with the clarity of ocean air and the gentle warmth of June sunshine streaming through stained glass windows. I stood just outside the doors of the resort's seaside chapel, my heart hammering against my ribs. The string quartet began playing Pachelbel's canon, the familiar notes floating through the air as the doors opened to reveal a sanctuary filled with guests. A moment of panic seized me as I realized there was no father to walk me down the aisle. No mother watching with proud tears. The empty front row seats reserved for my family seemed to scream their absence to everyone present. Then Robert, Ethan's father, appeared at my side. "May I have the honor?" he asked softly, offering his arm. No one should walk this path alone. Tears pricked my eyes as I nodded gratefully. This man, who had known me for only 4 years, was stepping in where my father of 29 years had failed. The symbolism wasn't lost on me or judging by the murmurs on our guests. As we began our procession, I forced myself to look straight ahead, focusing on Ethan waiting at the altar. His face transformed when he saw me, eyes widening, lips parting in awe, love radiating from every feature. In that moment, I knew with absolute certainty that no matter what family drama had preceded this day, I was making the right choice in my future. The ceremony proceeded with an emotional intensity I hadn't anticipated. When I repeated forsaking all others in my vows, the words carried new weight. I was forsaking not just potential romantic partners, but toxic family relationships as well. When the minister pronounced us husband and wife, Ethan's kiss felt like a seal on more than our marriage. It was a pledge to protect each other from all hurts, including those inflicted by blood relations. During the reception, I noticed curious glances toward the empty table labeled Family of the Bride. Julia had efficiently removed the place cards bearing my parents' and sisters' names, but the void remained conspicuous. When guests inevitably asked, I answered with the simple truth: they couldn't make it. My sister had a headache. The responses ranged from confusion to outrage on my behalf, but I refused to let their absence dominate my celebration. Instead, I danced with Ethan's father for the traditional father-daughter dance, laughed with my friends, and cut our cake surrounded by people who had chosen to be present. As twilight settled over Newport and fairy lights twinkled across the venue's gardens, Ethan pulled me aside to a private balcony overlooking the ocean. "I have an update," he said, his expression serious, as he showed me his phone. "The PI sent these an hour ago." The images showed my family still at the restaurant, now drinking wine and laughing. Another showed them strolling along a shopping district, amber, walking perfectly normally, no sign of pain or distress. The timestamp proved they were taken during our ceremony. A wave of cold fury washed over me. So they're not even trying to maintain the lie, they're just having a fun day out instead of attending my wedding. Ethan nodded grimly. "It's even worse than we thought. This wasn't just Amber manipulating them, they're willing participants." I leaned against the balcony railing, letting the sea breeze cool my flushed cheeks. "You know what? I'm done feeling sad about this. I'm just angry. And I want them to know exactly what they've done." "Are you sure you want to go through with the plan?" Ethan asked, wrapping an arm around my waist. "Once we send that evidence, there's no going back. Family relationships can heal from arguments, but exposing lies this publicly." They didn't give a second thought to missing the most important day of my life. I replied, my resolve strengthening. "Why should I care about protecting their reputation?" Ethan nodded, pressing a kiss to my temple. "Then we'll do it exactly as planned. But not tonight. Tonight belongs to us and our happiness. We rejoined the reception where champagne flowed and music pulsed. Around midnight, as guests prepared sparklers for our exit, my phone buzzed with a text from my mother. "Hope your day was special, honey. Amber's feeling better now. Maybe we can all have dinner next weekend." The casual tone, the complete lack of acknowledgement of what they'd done cemented my resolve. I showed Ethan the message, then deliberately turned off my phone and tossed it into my overnight bag. "Ready to start our new life, Mrs. Carter?" Ethan asked as we prepared to run through the corridor of sparkling light created by our guests. "More than ready," I replied, squeezing his hand. As we dashed through cheers and well wishes toward the vintage Rolls-Royce that would take us to our hotel, I felt strangely weightless. The heavy burden of seeking my family's approval of accommodating Amber's manipulations had lifted. Whatever storms lay ahead with the exposure of their deception, I would weather them with Ethan by my side. The next morning, as sunlight streamed through our hotel suite windows and room service breakfast waited on our balcony, I found myself reflecting on the wedding day that had been both heartbreaking and liberating. I picked up my phone, turning it on for the first time since the reception. 6 missed calls from my mother, 4 from my father, a dozen increasingly irritated texts from Amber. "I think they've realized something's wrong," I told Ethan, showing him the notifications. He set down his coffee cup, eyes meeting mine with unwavering support. "What do you want to do now? We fly to Greece tomorrow for our honeymoon. We could wait until we return to deal with them." I considered this, scrolling through the messages. The latest from my mother read, "Savannah, please call us. We're getting worried." Was something wrong with the wedding? The audacity of that question sparked renewed determination within me. They had no idea of the storm that was coming. No, I decided, we stick to the plan. We enjoy our honeymoon, and when we return, we expose everything. I'm done being gaslit and manipulated. It's time they face the truth. Ethan raised his champagne glass in a toast. To truth, consequences, and new beginnings. I clinked my glass against his, feeling the weight of the decision, but also the righteousness of it. To finally being free. Little did I know that while we enjoyed the Greek islands, my family would be frantically trying to rewrite history, setting the stage for a confrontation that would permanently alter the Mitchell family dynamic forever. The revenge that was coming wouldn't just be sweet, it would be transformative. Hey everyone, I hope you're enjoying the story so far. Can you believe what Savannah's family did to her? If you've ever had to deal with family drama or someone who always plays the victim, drop a comment below. I'd love to hear your thoughts on Ethan's plan, too extreme, or exactly what's needed. Hit that like button if you're ready to see what happens when they get back from their honeymoon, and subscribe so you don't miss the dramatic conclusion. The family showdown is coming up next. The Santorini sunset painted the whitewashed buildings in shades of gold and amber as Ethan and I clinked our wine glasses on our final evening in Greece. For 2 blissful weeks, I had existed in a bubble of newlywed happiness, deliberately pushing thoughts of my family to the periphery of my consciousness. With the Mediterranean Sea stretching before us and the warm breeze carrying the scent of lemon and salt, confrontation seemed a distant concern. "We fly home tomorrow," Ethan reminded me gently, his thumb tracing circles on my wrist. "Are you ready for what comes next?" I took a long sip of wine before answering. "I've been thinking about that a lot. Part of me wants to just cut them off completely, avoid the drama. But then they never learn," Ethan finished. "And Amber keeps controlling everyone with her emergencies." Exactly. I sighed, watching the sun dip below the horizon line. "They missed our wedding for a fake headache, Ethan. They were shopping and having lunch while I walked down the aisle without my father." The pain of that betrayal had crystallized during our honeymoon, hardening from raw hurt into something colder and more resolved. The messages from my family had continued sporadically during our trip, increasingly demanding and guilt-inducing. I'd responded minimally, claiming poor reception and busy schedules, but the confrontation was inevitable. The PI delivered the complete file to our apartment yesterday, Ethan said, pulling up an email on his phone. 6 months of documentation, photos, videos, timestamps, all cross-referenced with the emergencies your family claimed were happening. He handed me the phone and I scrolled through the evidence. Amber at a concert the night she was supposedly in the emergency room. My parents and sister at a restaurant when they told me they couldn't make our menu tasting because Amber was having severe vertigo. Dozens of social media posts Amber had made then deleted showing her enjoying herself during claimed illnesses. Most damning was the wedding day documentation. While I had been getting ready in my wedding dress, fighting back tears at their absence, they had been having a leisurely brunch followed by shopping. The PI had captured crystal clear footage of Amber laughing, trying on clothes, and walking normally, no sign of pain or distress. It's all so calculated, I whispered, feeling sick. She's been doing this my entire life, hasn't she? Ethan nodded grimly. The pattern is undeniable. The PI interviewed a few of your childhood friends, too. They confirmed Amber's episodes always coincided with your important events. I handed the phone back suddenly decisive. I want to confront them in person. All of them together. And I want to do it at their house on their territory. Are you sure? Ethan asked, concern etched on his face. They might gang up on you there. Let them try, I replied, a newfound steel in my voice. I have the truth on my side now, and I'm done being manipulated. When our plane touched down in Boston the following evening, I texted my mother, Ethan, and I need to speak with you, Dad and Amber. We'll drive down to Connecticut this weekend. Please make sure everyone is home on Saturday at 2 p.m. Her response came quickly. Of course, sweetie, we've missed you so much. Can't wait to hear about the honeymoon and see wedding photos. The cheerful tone, the complete lack of acknowledgement of what they'd done, it only strengthened my resolve. That Saturday, Ethan and I pulled into the driveway of my childhood home. The familiar colonial structure with its pristine landscaping had once represented comfort. Now it felt like the scene of 1,000 small betrayals. Remember, Ethan said, squeezing my hand before we exited the car, we have facts on our side. Don't let them gaslight you. Mom opened the door before we could knock, arms outstretched for a hug. I reluctantly accepted. Dad stood behind her, offering a stilted embrace and a mumbled, "Welcome home." Amber lounged on the living room sofa, offering a lazy wave and the predictable comment, "The newlyweds finally grace us with their presence." We settled in the living room, an uncomfortable silence stretching until Mom broke it with forced cheer. "So, tell us all about Greece, and I'm dying to see the wedding photos." Such a shame we missed the actual day, but Amber was just so ill. "Stop," I interrupted, my voice calm but firm. "Before we go any further, we need to address what happened on our wedding day." My parents exchanged quick glances. Dad cleared his throat nervously. "Now, Savannah, we've already explained." "No, you haven't," I countered, pulling out a folder from my tote bag. "You haven't explained anything truthfully, so let me tell you what actually happened." I laid out photographs on the coffee table one by one. Amber at the restaurant timestamp clearly showing it was during my ceremony. My parents shopping. The three of them laughing over wine. "What is this?" Mom whispered, face draining of color. "Evidence," Ethan replied simply. "From a private investigator who's been documenting Amber's behavior for months." Amber shot up from the sofa, suddenly alert. "You had me followed. That's insane. And illegal." "It's neither insane nor illegal," I said calmly. "And there's more. Much more." I produced additional photos, Amber dancing at clubs on nights she claimed to be bedridden with pain. Her shopping during my engagement party. My parents enabling her time and again. "This is an invasion of privacy," Amber shrieked, looking desperately at our parents. Mom, Dad, are you going to let them do this? My father looked ashen, staring at the evidence spread before him. My mother began to cry softly. We had no choice, I explained, maintaining my composure despite my pounding heart. Because you've been lying to me, to all of us, for years. And I needed proof before I confronted you. So what if I wasn't at urgent care that day? Amber snapped defiance, replacing shock. I still had a headache. I still didn't feel well enough for a noisy, stressful wedding. That's the problem, Amber. It's always about how you feel. Every birthday, graduation achievement in my life has been overshadowed by your convenient emergencies. And Mom and Dad have enabled it every single time. I turned to my parents, who sat frozen like guilty children caught in a lie. The worst part isn't even Amber's manipulation. It's that you chose to miss your daughter's wedding for a headache you knew wasn't real. You chose to prioritize Amber's control tactics over one of the most important days of my life. That's not fair, my father protested weakly. Your sister has health issues. Stop it, I interrupted. Just stop. The evidence is right in front of you. She was shopping and laughing while you were texting me about urgent care. Either you knew she was lying, which makes you complicit, or you've been manipulated by her for decades, which makes you fools. A heavy silence fell over the room. Amber's face had transformed into a mask of rage and embarrassment. My mother continued to cry silently. My father stared at the floor. Here's what happens next. I continued gathering the photos back into the folder. I've prepared copies of all this evidence for every member of our extended family, grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins. Everyone who's ever had to rearrange their lives because of Amber's emergencies. You wouldn't, Amber whispered, face paling. I absolutely would. Unless things change dramatically right now. What do you want from us? My father asked, finally meeting my gaze. I took a deep breath. I want an acknowledgement of what you've done. A real apology, not excuses. I want family therapy where we address this toxic dynamic honestly. And I want consequences for Amber. Consequences, Amber scoffed. I'm 36 years old. What are they going to do, ground me? No, I replied calmly. But they can stop paying your credit card bills. Stop covering your rent when you're too sick to work for months at a time. Stop letting you manipulate them financially and emotionally. My parents looked at each other, a silent communication passing between them. To my surprise, it was my mother who spoke first. She's right, she said quietly. About all of it, we've known. Maybe not the full extent, but we've suspected Amber exaggerates. We've enabled it because it was easier than confronting the truth. Mom, Amber gasped. How can you say that? Because it's time, Amber. Mom's voice grew stronger. We missed Savannah's wedding. Her wedding. What kind of parents does that make us? Savannah is right. This has gone on long enough. My father nodded slowly, the weight of decades of enabling seeming to visibly press down on his shoulders. We've failed you, Savannah. I've failed you as a father. Not walking my daughter down the aisle. His voice broke. I'll regret that for the rest of my life. Amber looked frantically between our parents, her carefully constructed world of privilege crumbling. This is ridiculous. You're choosing her over me now. After all these years, no one is choosing anyone over anyone. I corrected her. That's the point. This isn't about choosing sides. It's about fairness and truth. Something our family has lacked for as long as I can remember. As the confrontation continued, something unexpected happened. Beneath Amber's indignation, I glimpsed genuine fear. Fear of losing her position as the family's central figure. Fear of facing life without the cushion of perpetual support her manipulations had secured. For the first time, I saw my sister clearly not a villain, but a deeply insecure woman who had built her identity around being the family priority. This realization didn't excuse her actions, but it helped me understand them. And in that understanding, I found not just anger, but something approaching compassion. The conversation lasted hours, cycling through accusations, denials, tearful confessions, and tentative steps toward reconciliation. By the time Ethan and I left that evening, nothing was fully resolved, but something had fundamentally shifted. My parents had agreed to family therapy. Amber had reluctantly acknowledged some of her manipulations, and I had stood my ground without backing down. In the car heading back to Boston, Ethan squeezed my hand. "I'm proud of you. That took incredible courage. I couldn't have done it without you," I admitted. "Without knowing you had my back." "Always," he promised. "But what now? Do you think they'll follow through?" I gazed out the window at the passing Connecticut landscape. "I don't know. But for the first time, I feel like I have power in this relationship. I'm not just accepting whatever scraps of attention they're willing to give me." What I didn't know then was that our confrontation had set in motion changes far more profound than I could have imagined, changes that would test all of us in unexpected ways. 3 months after our confrontation, life had settled into a new and unfamiliar pattern. Ethan and I had returned to our apartment in Boston, busy with work and establishing our routines as a married couple. My relationship with my family had entered uncharted territory, fragile, tentative, but slowly rebuilding on more honest foundations. The immediate aftermath of our confrontation had been predictably turbulent. Amber had stormed out of the house, refusing to speak to any of us for weeks. My parents had cycled through guilt, defensiveness, and finally, a genuine desire for change. The family therapy sessions I had demanded had begun awkwardly but gradually evolved into productive discussions. Dr. Levine, our therapist, didn't pull punches. "The Mitchell family has operated with Amber as the sun that everyone orbits around," she observed during our 3rd session. "That's not healthy for anyone, including Amber." To my surprise, my father emerged as the family member most determined to make amends. One rainy Tuesday in October, he drove to Boston unannounced and asked me to meet him for coffee. "I've been doing a lot of reflecting," he said, hands wrapped around his mug as we sat in a quiet corner of a cafe near my office. "About the kind of father I've been. The kind of father I want to be." I listened silently, afraid to hope too much. "I missed your wedding," he continued, voice thick with emotion. "I can never get that moment back. But I want to try to make it up to you if you'll let me." "How?" I asked, not unkindly but skeptically. He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a thick envelope. "These are printouts of all your childhood achievements, newspaper clippings about your academic awards programs, from your piano recitals, your college graduation announcement. I found them all in the attic. I had saved everything, Savannah." I flipped through the yellowing pages with trembling hands. "I noticed," he said softly. "I always noticed your accomplishments. I just failed to celebrate them properly, to give them the attention they deserved." Why, I whispered, the question that had haunted me for years, finally spoken aloud. Why was Amber always more important? My father sighed deeply. "It started when she was very young. She had some genuine health issues as a toddler, nothing severe, but enough to make your mother and me anxious. We became hypervigilant, maybe too much so. And Amber, she figured out that being sick got her attention. By the time we realized the pattern, it was so entrenched that challenging it felt impossible. So you just continued it. For decades." "We did," he admitted, shame evident in his expression. "It was wrong. We failed you both, Amber, by enabling her dependency, and you by making you feel less important. I'm not asking for forgiveness today. I'm just asking for a chance to be a better father going forward." That conversation marked a turning point. While full healing would take years, not months, it opened a door that had been firmly closed since my wedding day. My mother's journey was more complicated. Her identity had been so wrapped up in caring for Amber that redefining her role proved challenging. but she was trying calling me regularly without mentioning Amber, asking questions about my life, and actually listening to the answers. The most dramatic change, however, came from an unexpected direction. 6 weeks after our confrontation, Amber called me. "Can we meet?" she asked, her voice lacking its usual demanding tone. "Just us. No parents, no Ethan." We arranged to meet at a neutral location, a park halfway between Boston and Connecticut. When I arrived, I almost didn't recognize my sister. The carefully maintained highlights were gone from her hair, replaced by her natural brown. Her designer clothes had been swapped for simple jeans and a sweater. "I've been in intensive therapy," she said without preamble as we sat on a bench overlooking a small pond. "Turns out I have some actual issues, just not the ones I've been claiming all these years." "What kind of issues?" I asked cautiously. "Anxiety, depression, and a personality disorder that makes me need attention in unhealthy ways." She twisted her hands in her lap. "I've been lying for so long, I sometimes couldn't tell what was real anymore." I remained silent, waiting for her to continue. "I was jealous of you," she admitted, not meeting my eyes. "You were always so capable, so independent. You got good grades without trying. People liked you naturally. I felt like the only way I could compete was by being the special one, the fragile one everyone had to take care of." "We weren't in competition, Amber," I said softly. "We never had to be. I know that. Intellectually, I know that. Emotionally," she shrugged, "I'm working on it. I've moved out of my apartment, the one Mom and Dad were subsidizing. Got a real job, a small place of my own. It's terrifying, but also freeing. For the first time in our adult lives, I felt like I was seeing the real Amber, vulnerable, flawed, but making genuine effort to change. I can't undo what I did," she continued. "Missing your wedding was unforgivable. I know that. But I am sorry, Savannah. Truly sorry. I didn't offer easy forgiveness, that would have been premature and dishonest. But I did offer something else. How about we try being real sisters for once? No manipulation, no competition, just getting to know each other as the adults we are now." She nodded, tears spilling down her cheeks. "I'd like that." Over the following weeks, Amber and I began building a relationship unlike anything we'd had before. We met for coffee, exchanged occasional texts, and slowly discovered we actually had things in common when the dynamics of our childhood weren't driving us apart. Meanwhile, Ethan remained my steadfast support, celebrating the positive changes while reminding me to maintain boundaries. "Just because they're trying doesn't mean you owe them immediate trust," he cautioned one evening, as we discussed an invitation from my parents for a Thanksgiving visit. "Healing happens at your pace, not theirs." In early November, I received a package from my parents. Inside was a photo album, but not just any album. They had collected photographs from our wedding that our photographer had shared with them. They'd arranged them chronologically, added captions, and written a lengthy letter that began, "Dear Savannah and Ethan, we weren't there to witness your beautiful day in person. A failure that will always be one of our deepest regrets. While we can't change the past, we want you to know that we celebrate your marriage and the wonderful couple you are. We hope that someday, when you're ready, you might share your wedding memories with us so that we can honor properly what we foolishly missed." Tears streamed down my face as I read those words, not just because of their sentiment, but because for the first time there were no excuses, no mentions of Amber's headache, no attempts to justify their absence. Just a clean acknowledgement of their mistake and its impact. On Thanksgiving Day, Ethan and I drove to Connecticut. The holiday had always been a flashpoint for family tension, with Amber inevitably having some crisis that reorganized the entire celebration around her needs. This year would be different. When we arrived, my father embraced me warmly. My mother had prepared all my favorite dishes, not just Amber's. And Amber herself arrived on time, bringing a store-bought pie and making no demands for special attention. As we gathered around the table, my father raised his glass. "I'd like to propose a toast. To new beginnings. To honesty. And to family, not the perfect family we pretended to be, but the real one we are becoming." We clinked glasses, the simple gesture symbolizing something profound, the possibility of healing even after deep betrayal. Later that evening, as Ethan and I prepared to drive back to Boston, my mother pulled me aside. "I found something I think you should have," she said, handing me a small velvet box. Inside was my grandmother's sapphire ring, a family heirloom I had always admired. "I should have given this to you on your wedding day," she explained. Better late than never, I slipped the ring onto my right hand, the blue stone catching the light. Better late than never, I agreed. As Ethan and I drove home through the darkness, I reflected on the journey of the past months. The wedding day betrayal had been devastating, but it had also been necessary, the catalyst for breaking destructive patterns that had defined our family for decades. "Do you regret it?" Ethan asked, seeming to read my thoughts. The confrontation, the PI, all of it, I considered the question carefully. "No," I finally answered. "It was painful and messy, but without it, nothing would have changed. We'd still be trapped in the same dysfunctional cycle." He reached across the console to take my hand. "For what it's worth, I think you've shown incredible grace through all of this. Lesser people would have cut them off completely." I considered that, I admitted. But ultimately, I didn't want revenge. I wanted repair. As our car continued northward toward Boston and our shared future, I felt a sense of peace that had eluded me for years. The family wound wasn't fully healed. Such deep injuries take time, but for the first time, genuine healing seemed possible. My wedding day hadn't gone as planned. My parents hadn't walked me down the aisle or witnessed our vows. But paradoxically, their absence had set in motion events that ultimately strengthened not just my marriage, but our entire family. Sometimes the most painful betrayals create space for the most meaningful reconciliations. And sometimes, what your fiancé does when your parents miss your wedding because of your sister's headache is exactly what you needed all along, even if you didn't know it at the time. 1 year after our wedding day, Ethan and I stood on the deck of a rented beach house in Cape Cod, watching as my parents helped set up chairs on the sand below. Amber was arranging flowers on a small arbor, consulting periodically with the photographer about lighting and angles. "Are you ready for this?" Ethan asked, slipping his arm around my waist. I nodded, emotion making it difficult to speak. Today, on our first anniversary, we were renewing our vows with my family present this time. The idea had come from my father during a therapy session 3 months earlier. "Let us be there for a ceremony," he had suggested, voice thick with emotion. "Not to replace your wedding day, but to acknowledge it. To be present this time." The past year had been one of profound transformation for the Mitchell family. Weekly therapy had gradually given way to monthly check-ins as new, healthier patterns established themselves. My parents had started treating Amber and me as equals for the first time in our lives. Amber had maintained her independence, working consistently and managing her genuine health issues without manipulation. Our relationships remained works in progress. There were still tense moments, old habits that occasionally resurfaced, wounds that hadn't fully healed. But there was also genuine effort on all sides and a commitment to truth that had been absent before. As I descended the wooden stairs to the beach in a simple white sundress, my father waited at the bottom, tears glistening in his eyes. "Thank you for the second chance," he whispered as he offered his arm. My mother stood to greet me, squeezing my hand before taking her place in the front row. Amber gave me a genuine smile, something that would have been unimaginable a year ago. The ceremony was brief but meaningful. Ethan and I repeated our vows as waves lapped gently on the shore. When the officiant pronounced us husband and wife again, my father was the first to applaud. During the small reception afterward, Amber approached me somewhat hesitantly. I've been wanting to tell you something, she said, fidgeting with her glass of sparkling cider. I've been accepted to a counseling program. I want to help other people who use illness for attention like I did. Maybe turn my mistakes into something useful. I hugged her spontaneously, another first. I'm proud of you, Amber. Really proud. As the celebration continued into evening, I found myself standing at the water's edge with Ethan watching the sunset paint the horizon in shades of pink and gold. Do you ever think about how differently things might have turned out? I asked him. If they had just shown up to our wedding. He considered this, his fingers laced through mine. If they'd come, nothing would have changed. The same patterns would have continued. Your parents would still be enabling Amber, you'd still be the afterthought, and none of you would be doing the real work of being a family. So their betrayal was actually a gift, I mused, watching as my father twirled my mother to the music drifting from the beach house. Sometimes, the worst moments create the best opportunities for change, Ethan replied. But it took courage, yours, to seize that opportunity. I rested my head on his shoulder, gratitude washing over me. I couldn't have done it without you. Yes, you could have, he corrected gently. You've always had that strength. I just helped you see it. As twilight deepened into night, my mother joined us by the water. Your grandmother would be so proud of you, she said, nodding toward the sapphire ring that now lived permanently on my right hand. Not just of what you've accomplished, but of who you are, your resilience, your capacity for forgiveness. I learned something important this year, I told her. Family isn't just about blood or obligation. It's about choice, choosing to see each other honestly, choosing to do the hard work of loving each other better. She nodded, wiping away a tear. I choose you, Savannah. I choose to be the mother you deserve. Later, as Ethan and I prepared to cut our anniversary cake, my father asked for everyone's attention. A year ago, I made the worst mistake of my life, he said, voice carrying across the small gathering. I missed my daughter's wedding because I had forgotten what family truly means. But Savannah didn't give up on us. She demanded truth. She insisted on change. And because of her courage, we stand here today, not a perfect family, but a real one. He raised his glass. To Savannah and Ethan. Thank you for showing us that it's never too late to build something beautiful from broken pieces. As applause surrounded us and Ethan squeezed my hand, I felt a profound sense of closure. The betrayal that had once defined my wedding day had transformed into something unexpected. A catalyst for growth, a foundation for authenticity, a beginning rather than an end. Sometimes when your sister's headache keeps your parents from your wedding, what your fiancé does isn't just an act of revenge, it's an act of love. And sometimes the hardest truths lead to the most meaningful healing. What's a time when someone in your family let you down, but it ultimately led to positive change? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments. If this family drama resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories with unexpected endings. Share this video with someone who might need to hear that sometimes family relationships can heal even after the deepest betrayals. Thank you so much for watching my story, and remember that sometimes life's most painful moments become our greatest opportunities for growth and healing.